In the Experiencing Life series of trips, there are some animals you are very likely to see. Some are so common you can see them in your own neighborhood without leaving. But Experiencing Life is about experiencing things that aren't so common, at least not everywhere, so you can appreciate the wide variety of living things here and throughout the world. So we need some kind of reference point. This list shows the top 10 most commonly observed animals in the United States. They are not necessarily the most common animals in the United States, they're just the most observed in iNaturalist. What's iNaturalist, you say? Straight off their own website, iNaturalist is an online social network of people sharing biodiversity information to help each other learn about nature. It helps you identify organisms you see while gathering data for science and conservation. So these are the top 10 animals that people using the site have observed and submitted. Let's go! Number 10. The Eastern Gray Squirrel, Sciurus carolinensis. This is a rodent in the family Sciuridae. Native to the eastern U.S., it has been introduced to pockets of the West and has been declared an invasive species in Europe. It is commonly seen in trips 2, 3, 6, 8, and 10 of the Experiencing Life series. They generally prefer oak hickory forests for the abundance of food, but can also be found in parks and backyards where these trees exist. Rodents are the order of mammals with the most species, but this is the only rodent on this list. Number 9. The Red-Tailed Hawk, Buteo jamecensis. This is a raptor in the family Accipitridae. It is one of the most common hawks in the world. It's adaptable to most environments, from deserts to wetlands and mountains to coastlines, but they prefer mixed forests and fields. When their tail is exposed, it's very easy to identify them, but their tail could be covered and then it's a little harder to tell. Number 8. The Northern Cardinal, Cardinalis cardinalis. This is a perching bird in the family Fringillidae. Found mostly in the eastern and southern U.S., like many birds, there's a big difference in the appearance of males and females. They are territorial birds even when it comes to their own reflection. Number 7. The White-Tailed Deer, Otocoilus virginianus. This is an ungulate in the family Cervidae. Found most often east of the Rocky Mountains, their range can go into the west along river corridors and along the low-elevation foothills in the north. But usually if you see a deer in the west, it is a mule deer. The easiest way to tell the difference is if they are running away from you. A white-tailed deer sticks up its tail, which is large, furry, and white on the underside. Mule deer tails are smaller, less furry, and have some black on them. But when the tail is down, the rear end of a mule deer actually looks much more white than that of a white-tailed deer. White-tailed deer start off with spots that they lose as adults. Male adults develop antlers that they shed each year. This one is just getting his for the season. Number 6. The Canada Goose, Branta canadensis. A waterfowl in the family Anatidae, they can be found nearly everywhere in the United States. There is some controversy about whether the common name for this bird is Canada goose or Canadian goose. Honestly, who cares? They're both correct. It's a good example of why scientific names are standardized. This bird is every bit as American as it is Canadian. Number 5. The American robin, Turdus migratorius. A perching bird in the thrush family Turdidae, they are found throughout the continental United States. There are more robins than any other land bird in the United States. Unlike cardinals, male and female robins look similar. The main predator of robins is the domestic cat. Number 4. The great blue heron, Ardea herodias. In the same order as pelicans, ibises, egrets, and herons, this bird is in the family Ardeidae. They are found throughout the U.S. near rivers, lakes, and wetlands. They are not the largest bird in the United States, but they may be the largest one that can be found fairly easily throughout the country. There's a white subspecies found mainly in southern Florida, which could be mistaken for a great egret. But the great egret has black legs, a slimmer bill, no decorative plumes on its head, and is smaller. The white version of the great blue heron has more yellowish legs, a thicker bill, head plumes, and is as large as the regular blue herons. This is a blue heron standing with smaller great egrets at Quivira National Wildlife Refuge. Number 3. The Monarch Butterfly, Danas plexippus. This butterfly is in the family Nymphalidae. The exclusive food of the caterpillars is milkweed, and it is necessary for egg laying. Ironically, the practice of humans planting certain kinds of milkweed to help monarchs may actually be hurting them. Normally, most monarchs migrate to the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve just west of Mexico City. But year-round plantings of tropical milkweed may have caused some monarchs to overwinter along the U.S. Gulf Coast. This seems to have caused certain parasites to be able to build up, as well as affecting their ability to migrate. Number 2. The western honeybee, Apis mellifera. Sadly, the second most common observation in iNaturalist is a species that is not native to the United States. But the first subspecies of honeybee was introduced way back in the 1600s, so the continent has had some time to adapt to the species in general. Other subspecies have been introduced as recently as the 2000s, though, and their effect on native species may still be unknown. Introduced or not, bees are some of the most important pollinators of a wide variety of flowering plants. Okay, before we get to number 1, let's look at some animals that didn't make the top 10 in the U.S., but are in the top 10 for experiencing life locations. The ochre sea star, Pisaster ochraceus. This is the only non-insect invertebrate in this video. The ochre sea star is the 10th most common observation in the Experiencing Life series. While it's commonly reported in iNaturalist, this echinoderm is only located in a narrow tidal zone along the west coast. Experiencing Life trips where you can see ochre sea stars are Trip 7 at Monterey Bay Marine Sanctuary and Trip 5 at Redwoods National and State Parks and Olympic National Park. The spotted lanternfly, Lycorma delicatula. A much different issue than the honeybee is this bug. It was only introduced to the U.S. in 2014 and is spreading rapidly. As of 2024, it is still mainly concentrated in a triangle connecting Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and New York City. But the fact that it's the 9th most common observation for Experiencing Life sites either means it is very abundant there or that it just stands out and is new to people. As part of its life cycle, this bug prefers to use another invasive organism for laying its eggs and feeding, the tree of heaven, or Ailanthus altissima. But it can and will use native plants if the tree of heaven isn't available. It's actually kind of a pretty bug, but the native plants it kills likely don't agree. The house sparrow, Passer domesticus. This is another non-native species that was introduced in New York City in the 1850s. Because of its introduction from the Middle East to North America and most of the rest of the world, it is now the most widely distributed bird in the world. Besides actually being everywhere, House sparrows are commonly seen by humans since they tend to hang out near human development. And another introduced bird that hangs out near humans is the common pigeon, or rock pigeon, Columba livia. This bird has been in the U.S. at least as long as the honeybee, coming over on European ships in the very early 1600s. Pigeons are the most commonly observed animal in the experiencing life locations, mainly in the urban settings of Trip 10 from Washington to New York. Okay, now for number 1. The most commonly observed animal in the United States by users of iNaturalist is the mallard duck, Anis platyrhynchus. Mallards are found almost anywhere there's water in the United States. This is the second bird on this list from the family Anatidae, which makes species from that family the most commonly observed by far. It is in the subfamily Anatinae, which contains the dabbling ducks. Dabbling ducks feed mainly at the surface as opposed to diving. That's not to say they won't stick their butts up in the air to get food underwater, they just don't truly dive. These mallards are females. Like most ducks, the males and females look different from each other. Males are the showier ones and the females are more subdued. Some of the best places to experience mallards are in the wetlands of Trip 6 and in the freshwater environments of Trip 8. So there's your top 10. iNaturalist is a great resource for both identifying organisms you see and for figuring out where you are likely to be able to experience others. For more videos like this, subscribe to and like our channel. Don't just learn about life, experience it.